Hello everyone, my name is Chris Ellis. Today is Sunday, the 16th of October 2016, and I am coming to you just to say a quick hello because I haven't been around in a while, and I wanted to say hello to all you lovely people for all your support over the months. As many of you may know, I have been ill. But today I want to give a quick update on where I'm at in terms of my health, what I'm thinking of the economy, what I'm thinking of Bitcoin, and what future projects I have in particular for ProTip, the tipping extension. And we'll talk also a little bit about a pseudo competitor that's entered called the Brave Browser. It's not really a competitor because actually I think all attempts to help people monetize their work on the internet is a good thing. So we'll be talking about that as well. And after this show has ended, I'm going to be joining a group of professionals in the academic space to talk about getting some grant funding to help people digitize their academic achievements so that you can't defraud your degrees when you apply for jobs. That's a big issue here in the UK. Fraudulent degrees, people saying that they've got a qualification from such and such a place, but they haven't really. And so MIT have got a work group on that. I've got a good friend called Tony, not to be confused with Tone Bays, who I'll introduce you to in just a moment, who is a physicist from New York, who's been actually using some of the specifications that I put forward in the World Citizenship Project a number of years ago. And he's been getting his students to submit their work using Git, using Bitcoin's blockchain technology to do the timestamping to prove that the work was submitted and that he graded it. And so we're going to be on a private hangout in about an hour. So I have to keep this video brief. So to start with, I'm going to talk about this tweet that I made the other day, where I said Brits holding Bitcoin have seen an extra 10% increase in their holdings since September. Hashtag Brexit. And so I do keep my eye on the markets. I am a regular in the Whalepool TeamSpeak chat room, although I haven't been saying much these days, just been a passive observer. And as you can see, the green candles, the full-bodied candles here, are Bitcoin versus the pound, the British pound. And the bars, these ones down here, you probably can't see my cursor, but the ones lower down, those are Bitcoin USD. Now you can see in the month of September, up until a couple of days ago, the Brits saw a 15.94% increase in their Bitcoin value relative to the pounds that they're spending every day in the street. And whereas on USD holders have only seen a 5.84% increase. So this is very interesting because we've also seen similar activity in the yuan. This was also echoed by a colleague of mine called Nate, who also demonstrated a divergence in, you can actually see pound sterling there plummeting down in percentage terms and then going up in terms of Bitcoin terms. And the reason this is interesting is because we have seen a lot of price action since May, in particular when the price started going up in a big way in May, when the yuan started pumping on the Chinese exchanges like OKCoin and Huobi started pumping, and that would then drive buying pressure on the Western markets, on Bitfinex before it was hacked, and Bitstamp in particular. And that's interesting because if you look back at that graph, let me just pull it back up again for you briefly. There's actually a breakdown in what we call the price structure of the market. So you'll see that what we talk about when us traders is that we talk about support and resistance levels. You can see that there was a previous high here in pounds of around, let's say, 540 pounds. And we're now back almost at that historical high, but we haven't returned to the previous high in dollar terms. In fact, we're not even at the 666 mean level that we spent a lot of time at in the months following the June rise up. So that means that if we're at a particular resistance point on the pound, but we're not in terms of the dollar, that means the dollar should have more to go. And what happens is when China breaks out of a technical resistance level, so let's say it's a bull market and everyone's buying, what happens is the price gets up to the previous top. A lot of traders will go, okay, it's a double top, and they'll start selling because they're going to expect it to go down. But when it breaks out to the upside, even if the USD market isn't at the same level, even if the USD market hasn't got to that same former resistance level, just because of the yuan being devalued against the dollar in domestic affairs, what you find is that because Bitcoin is made up a large amount by retail traders, traders that are not educated or informed, they don't really understand markets very well, they just trade on emotion, they just start buying the hell out of it anyway. And that's kind of what we saw back in May, is that Huobi, if I remember correctly, was the first one to really start pumping the price up. And then all of the other exchanges started following, and it just became what's called a narcissistic rally, which means that people are just buying just because other people are buying, not because they actually find, you know, any of this very intrinsically valuable. So I put it forward, and it got a lot of responses from people, including professional economists that are way more qualified than me, because I said, I think this makes Bitcoin an attractive investment for Britons who want to protect themselves from the inflation that we've been warned by the central bank in England. Mark Carney has said that we are going to expect some inflation. He's putting the percentage figures above 2% because that's the prediction that he made. So I'm thinking he's thinking around 5%. But some of the worst case estimates have been as much as 20%, particularly on food and travel. So those kinds of things are going to affect us. And I think a lot of the people that I see come to the London Bitcoin meetup are often occasion. These are just ordinary people with ordinary jobs. They're not earning, you know, large sums of money or anything like that. But they turn up, and sometimes I think they just sort of see it like, well, how easy is it just to buy some Bitcoin? I just buy some in cash right here, and then it's just like a little hedge. It's not like a big kind of George Soros hedge, but it's a hedge against what they see as rising prices domestically in the economy. So, Tone, Faze, tell us, hello, how do you feel about all of this? What do you think? Am I right? Do you think Bitcoin is an attractive hedge? Or is it just like the gold bugs who just, you know, have been talking about the collapse forever? Oh, we can't hear you, Tone. Unmute yourself. No, we're still not getting Tone. Okay, we're going to keep on talking until Tone gets his mic back. Okay, we can hear that. I heard that. You there? Nothing. All right. So I'm just going to keep on talking whilst Tone sorts his thing out. So I went to the shops today. I did get some Marmite. I don't have it on me. If I was better prepared, I would. But I did get some Marmite, and it was fine. And I didn't notice the rise in prices. But I think earlier in the week, we had seen a news report from Tesco who put out some press release because they were anticipating some kickback from a particular company in the Netherlands called Unilever, who were threatening to raise the prices by as much as 10% across quite a large product range that you find in the supermarkets. And this led, of course, you know, the mainstream media love to, you know, they love bank runs, and they love hyperinflation. They love images like the Weimar Republic and the, you know, and the fall of the Deutschmark, and people pushing wheelbarrows of money and spending millions of dollars on cans of baked beans and loaves of bread. And I think that looks good optically for a lot of the media. And I think as soon as they got a whiff of this Tesco's press release, they were all over it. Of course, lots of great publicity for Tesco's. But what I think it kind of leads to is just a kind of a frenzy from lay people. So Tone, are you back with us?
Yeah, I think so.
Great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Great. Go ahead.
Excellent. I was just going to make a quick comment. I actually do have a PhD in physics from the University of Manchester. I'll be more than happy to send you my resume so you can take a look at that.
Great.
No. It's just a joke from your other thing. I was a science major originally, actually, so I did like my physics back when I was studying.
But is it cryptographically authenticated? Is it timestamped in the blockchain?
No, but I'm not. But we can have a whole other discussion on that of whether that's actually needed. But a quick word on the pound. That is an interesting situation. Obviously, this is happening because of the panic over the pound in the Brexit, which I personally think is ridiculous. I think the Brexit is the best thing the Brits can do for their country. And pretty soon the pound will turn around. I think it's definitely oversold. At the least, it's oversold against the euro. The pound will probably continue to fall against the dollar, but it's just being way oversold against the dollar. People aren't realizing it yet. As far as the Bitcoin breakout goes, your asset is not in a breakout until it is making new highs in all major currencies. So even if the British pound remains, one of the top global currencies, even though, let's say, it drops another 10% or so, and Bitcoin is making an all new high in the pounds, breaking whatever it is, like maybe $950 a pound will probably be an all-time high for Bitcoin in pounds. It would mean absolutely nothing unless it's also breaking the all-time high in US dollars. This is a mistake that some traders make. When a currency gets devalued, all of a sudden some kind of an asset, like even like a car or a house, oh my God, the housing market is out of control. But that's because they don't realize that it's cheap to foreign buyers. Like Bitcoin, it becomes really cheap. You can do amazing arbitrage, which is why the Bitcoin price is going up in dollars, because people are going to arbitrage that price because they can otherwise they can make a good amount of profit by buying it there and selling it in the US, which is why that's happening, which is a really good indication that the US dollar is still king and it's not going anywhere. The Bitcoin is still priced in US dollars no matter how much action there is in the Chinese exchanges. Eventually it comes back to default with the primary driver of all the prices.
Yeah, that is correct. But we've also seen that the dollar is very strong at the moment. We've seen a big drop in gold and silver. They haven't been performing so well. And I think a lot of the people that were going to the dollar as a safe haven following the Brexit then piled on into the stock market. We saw a big rise in the S&P and also the FTSE 100 here in the UK, which is the 100 leading shares in Britain. That wasn't translated into the FTSE 200 because FTSE 200 is made up of domestic companies. So the investors weren't as bullish on domestic companies as they were on the international companies operating here in the United Kingdom, where they're headquartered or they've got some kind of a location. And I thought that it was interesting anyway that people fled to the dollar. The dollar is still very high at the moment. Gold and silver looked like they were going to break out earlier this year. That was then thwarted. And then if everyone piles into shares and indices.
Yeah, and I've been saying that for years. Mostly, I don't really give my market presentations often. I think Anarchapulco in Mexico. And I'm the guy that everyone is doing their presentation. The market is going to collapse. It's the Shemitah or some other religious thing, or get ready for Armageddon. The gold is going to be 50,000. I mean, that's what pretty much the genre of those presentations on the economy. And then I go up on stage and get booed because I stand there and I say the gold is useless and it's going to fall. Put all your money in the US stock market. And I keep trying to explain to people what happened in Brexit is going to keep happening everywhere. It's a huge mess. And everyone is going to pile into the dollar. And more importantly, everyone's going to pile into the US stock market. Everyone keeps talking about a 1929 crash. And I keep telling people, you go back to the 27 to 29, 3x rise in the stock market before it fell 90%. It went up, like it tripled. So before we see another major crash, I mean, if the market doubles or triples, I'll start waving the white flag. But until then, I'm very, very bullish the U.S. stock markets. I mean, I was kind of traveling as Brexit was happening, but and it's hard to catch a falling knife. I would have been very nervous to buy on the Brexit, but I knew it was going to recover. Liquidity to make a leverage bet, and then watch it fall another 15%, and then 2 days later recover. So it's very difficult to do. But this was very bullish for the especially U.S. stock market. And for you in London, I mean, for you personally, the devaluation of the pound is probably not great. But for the companies in London, this is awesome. You guys should look into some more manufacturing, double down on manufacturing, start exporting. Things just got a whole lot cheaper to sell your product to.
I mean, I do export.
Go on vacation to the US.
This channel is an export. I mean, I make the full nodes. I sell those in Bitcoin and US dollars, and so actually, I'm unaffected. I never keep more than a couple of £100 in my bank account at any one time because I don't particularly believe in the British pound as a currency, and so most of what little I have is in Bitcoin.
Well, it's actually, if you price them in US dollars, then you're unaffected, but your margins just went up a little bit, right? Like you
Well,
price them
I have to buy the Raspberry Pis, which are made in Britain, in pounds.
Right, so that just got cheaper for you, but then you're selling them for US dollars.
Yeah,
at the same price.
I don't know how Raspberry Pis are going to work, because obviously they get the chipboards are made in China, they're shipped and then assembled here in Wales, actually. So I don't know what that's going to do to the price of the Raspberry Pis.
Well,
go ahead.
Wait, let's get back to that for a second. So you buy the hardware and it's priced in British pounds.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So if the British pound keeps going down, they're going to have to raise their price. But for now, you're buying them in British pounds, but your profits when you sell them are in US dollars.
Yeah.
So you should be seeing, I mean, obviously, I'm not sure you're not running a huge operation, but if you were selling 50 of these suckers a day, you would see like a 10 to 15% profits in your business right there, just from the currency devaluation. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful for you. You want to like, you want to hold off on them up, raising the price of your hardware as long as possible.
Yeah, well, for the moment, the Raspberry Pi 3 is relatively cheap. It's £28 on Amazon. So I am probably, so that brings me to the next topic, which is my comeback, whether or not I'm going to come back and do some more videos. Right now, I am on these bad boys. I'm on a couple of these. You might recognize these if you're suffer from epilepsy. This is clomazepam, and it's a very strong muscle relaxant, stroke sedative. I've been to see a number of doctors. I'm also occasionally on this bad boy, which is tramadol. It's a very, very strong drug. I don't recommend you take either of these, really, unless you absolutely have to, of course, speak to a doctor. But the only way that I can talk to you right now is if I'm dosed up on these. And then I also take some ginseng and some other sort of stimulants, gentle stimulants, to kind of counteract the sleepiness. So that's how I'm able to do this. Ordinarily, the reason I've been absent from this channel and from public life is because it actually hurts me to talk. I have chronic head and myofascial pain that has been present intractably for 15 months. It has unremitted for 15 months. And normally I'm just like lied up in bed and I've got like, an ice pack or a heat pack on my head, and I'm just dosing up. So I only use these medications very sparingly, but over the next few weeks, I'm going to, I'm having some intensive physiotherapy right now and some massage therapy. My hope is to try and get myself to be more active. The theory being that if I do more, that maybe the symptoms will subside a little bit and I'll be able to cope with them a little bit better. So I really need your guys' help. Just giving me some support. You can support this video right now. The Bitcoin address is in the description below, which brings me to my next topic, which is ProTip. You may remember, many of you, that project that I was on quite some time ago. Let me share my screen. It's going to go a bit crazy initially. Yes. Now, so you can see on the right here, we have the ProTip browser that you guys funded. Here is the Bitcoin address. Officially, we've made 40. So in Bitcoin, we've made 45 Bitcoin in the history of the project, which is very good. You can see we're getting daily donations from people that are using the app itself. We can tell because, you can see the amounts, and also you can see the other unspent outputs where they're being spent to. And so I get daily donations. We've got 500 people using the app. This is the app itself. It basically works by automatically detecting Bitcoin addresses on web pages. So when you go to a Bitcoin address, let's hope this is safe for work, like this one, it will automatically light up green. You see it highlights the Bitcoin address. Bitcoin addresses can also be put in the HTML header. They can be put inside of images in the alt tag. And ProTip will then automatically search for a Bitcoin address and say, oh, I found you. It will then rank all of the top 10 websites on a weekly basis. And it will say, right, these were your top 10 websites ranked by time. So this is how much time you spent on them. And then you can put in here how much you want to spend per week. So if you only want to spend, you want to be really miserly, you want to spend $1 a week, then you see it will then shift down if I refresh. it will then shift down all the donations down here, and you will not spend more than $1. But it also actually allows you to subscribe. So like this lovely website here that gentleman sent me, Michael sent me on Twitter, and a shout out the other day. He's using the meta tag. So you can see that ProTip up here is detected that there is a Bitcoin address in the HTML meta tag, and it's timing me right now how long I'm spending on this. If I really like Michael's website, I can just hit this green button here, turn screen, and then it becomes a subscription under subscriptions, you see. So, oh, looks like we've got a new, so, oh, thank you very much. Somebody just sent us $6. Thank you very much to whoever you are for sending 0.01 BTC. That really helps. So this is the app. It was a labor of love, and we've actually raised more than the 45 Bitcoins displayed. Back when those were 45 Bitcoins, remember, they were only worth $280 odd or something. So we didn't get the full effect of, unfortunately, we were a bit too early. We also raised about, let's see, it was about $5,000 on Indiegogo, plus we did a couple of other fundraisers for the full nodes. But essentially, we now have, we're back into a situation where, let me get my screen back up, where we now have a new developer called David Lucid. He has been working with the other David Bailey at Hard BTC, the guy that was selling the physical Bitcoins that you guys were going mad over. He's one of the last people on earth, by the way, to hold those Casacious coins, because he's been holding onto them for the longest time. They've been appreciating in value because they're getting rarer and rarer. The guy that makes them isn't allowed to make them anymore because it's technically money transmission or whatever. And he's just done a great job. I'm also going to announce as well another project that we're working on at the moment. But before I do, I want you guys out there just to really say, like, what do you want me to do with ProTip? We've got 500 users. It looks to us like a dozen, maybe 2 dozen of you are using it every week, just by looking at the volume. I mean, I can't analyze it because there's no central server, but just looking at how many donations we get and looking at the other outputs on those donations, we can get a rough idea of how many people are using it. Looks like, you know, between 12 and maybe 20 of you are using it on a weekly basis and a regular basis. 450 odd of you haven't uninstalled it, so that's a good thing. But I'd like to know from you, what is, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you be disappointed if you never saw this app again? Like, do you want this to exist? If the answer is yes, and you're like 8 or 9, I'd be really gutted if I ever saw this disappear off the face of the earth. I will work on it, and I will work on it for you. And in which case, the next question is, what's the most important feature that we can add to the app that you think will help, you know, Bitcoin as an ecosystem, and you think, more importantly, what will help content creators? Because now what I want to do is just show you a juxtaposition, because I'm very happy that another company called Brave has entered in to the foray of micro tipping. And this is brave.com, and it's made by a guy called Brennan Eich, I think his name is, and he's the inventor of JavaScript. He used to work at Netscape and then Mozilla. So this guy is a real hotshot, and he's done a fantastic job, I think, of really reaching out to the publishers. And so if you're a publisher, you know, you're able to use this browser. I mean, it's certainly a very brave project, because he's got to get all of those millions of users away from other popular browsers like Chrome and Mozilla. But in particular, Chrome, I think he's going to find it very difficult. But I support him, even though it has been criticized as a project, because it does make, you know, there's a certain amount of KYC, know your customer, AML, anti-money laundering. But Brendan stresses that really is for the publishers, not for the everyday users. So I think as long as a user that you're mixing your coins, you're not reusing Bitcoin addresses too much, you should be pretty safe. I think they want to be privacy conscious. But I'd just like to point out, just like to do a little juxtaposition here. This is the Brave browser on the left there. This is ProTip on the right. So if I just do this, you can see I love it. I am so flattered and happy about this, even if it wasn't deliberate, okay, and even if that designer didn't take a sneak peek and say, oh, okay, we can do it like this, I'm still so happy that our project got the attention of somebody, a group of people that are so important and have got more money than us, more resources than us. Because as far as I'm concerned, all this does is brings that project closer. And what's more, actually, as well, if I've got the tweet here. So when we were talking to, or there was another conversation between John Light and Brendan. So Brendan, this is Brendan right here, and he was asking, like, is there an emerging, micro tag, meta tag, sorry, for Bitcoin addresses? And John was very kind enough to loop me in, and I said, yes, here it is. Now, this wasn't even ours, if you remember. This was actually another project that I think has since kind of been sunset now, but somebody else introduced this meta tag. This is the tag that you put into your HTML header. If you're a webmaster, you run a website, a WordPress website, for example, you can just put this right into the header of your HTML page, and then ProTip will automatically recognize it. So Brendan is now like looping in back down here. He's now CCing his developer and saying, well, sure, why not? If there's already a meta tag out there and an interesting number of people are putting it on their web pages, then we may as well support it too. And that will just be absolutely fantastic. So that's kind of, where I'm at, and what I want to do is just work out from you, is this worth our time and energy? We made this app really just as a glorified prototype. It was a fully functioning, sustainable prototype, because we built it to work. It's still working more than a year after, 18 months after we designed it and built it. So actually coming up for its 2-year anniversary this Christmas. So it's been working pretty much without fault for 2 years almost. And the question is, what else do you want to see? We've got a list of features that you gave us, including support for other cryptocurrencies, including integrations with things like purse.io, so that you could convert your donations into purchases on Amazon automatically. You could create a wish list on Amazon, and then once you reached your goal, your threshold as a content creator, that it would automatically purchase stuff. But also, we had other sort of cool ideas about integrations into YouTube and getting a lot of these famous YouTubers on board. Is that something you still want to do? Like, if you're a Bitcoiner and you're interested in wanting to see this ecosystem grow, I think a lot of people have said, look, the problem is people don't want to spend their Bitcoins. That's the problem. The Bitcoiners are hoarders, and they're waiting for the $10,000 Bitcoin they're going to dump. And my thing is like, okay, I get it, but we got around the fees and the micro tipping by delaying the payment for a week. I don't think, like, if we designed a support with ProTip button, or if you're a graphic designer out there, I'd love to hear from you. Then what David Lucid, our new developer, has said that he can do is just come up with some micro syntax that anyone can just put into their website. They can put the support with ProTip into their website, and just someone simply clicks on that. It takes them to the install page, the one-click install, and away they go. The other thing I wanted to do was I wanted to create a ProTip faucet, a Bitcoin faucet, especially for new users, so that when people come on board, that they're able to get free Bitcoins once a week, or some pseudo randomly, and we can even use the randomness from the blockchain itself to make that fair. And the way that would basically work is that you would sign up. We would have a public Bitcoin address, and I would campaign much like I am to you right now in this video. And I would say to you as Bitcoiners, if you send Bitcoins to this address, 100% of these funds will be redistributed amongst the ProTip users. And I think that would be we've had some cool design ideas about ka-ching sounds and people getting Bitcoins into their ProTip tipping app, which I think would put Bitcoin into more people's hands. And I think it would be interesting to see what these people would do with it. It's not really for me to prescribe or to tell other people what they should do with their Bitcoins, but I would very much be interested to know. If you want to join me on that journey, if you think that's interesting and amazing and you want to be involved, let me know in the comments. You can also reach me at Mr. Chris Ellis on Twitter, and it's at ProTipHQ. So I'm just going to leave that right there. Tone, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts, also a few questions. I'm actually gonna download. I haven't been a ProTip user yet, but I really should be. From what you just showed, I just haven't had time to look into it. But I'm gonna start. It looks pretty cool, and I want to support some of the other websites. So you mentioned that if you have your Bitcoin address, even in, I mean, at the top of your website, even inside a JPEG, it can still pick it up.
Yeah, if it's in the alt tag, you know, the A tag in HTML, and you've got an
Oh, it has to be
alt.
in HTML. Okay, so it
Yeah.
doesn't pick it up from like pictures.
No, no, no.
Here's another question. Are you able to pick up a QR code, like, or does it have to be like
It
spelled out?
is technically possible, but we decided it would be prohibitively expensive for the CPU on the client computer because they'd have to
Okay.
work extra.
I'm just curious. You want to test it real quick? Like, if you go to my website, I think I have my address in the. I'm just curious if you'll pick it up. If you go to libertylifetrail.com, because I just have a QR code in my logo, and then I have it in the about page, but that's like on a different page.
Okay, so I'm just going to that now. Let me just put it up on the screen. No, it hasn't picked it up on the home page. So you said on the about. Let's click on the about. No, what you would need to do is oh, there it is. Yeah, we've got it. We've got it. Yeah, so it's on the about page down at the bottom.
Oh, so it doesn't pick it up unless you're actually in the about page.
That's correct, and that's, I think, because you haven't put it on your homepage anywhere.
Right. I just have the QR code in the logo.
Right.
Okay, so that I was just curious, like at which points it would pick it up and at which points it wouldn't pick it up. Okay. What about like if you're on YouTube and you put your QR code in your description, would it pick it up there?
Oh, you can't put the QR codes in descriptions, but yeah, if you put it in the just loose, if you just put the Bitcoin address loose in the description, that works.
Right. Like loose in the description. Not in the title of the video, but like in the about of the video.
Yeah. I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show you a working example of that right now. This is a documentary called Ulterior States by Tom Cantor, and you can see that ProTip has detected it. It's gone green, and if you click Show More, there it is.
Right. Oh, it's picking it up from there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No, that's good. Another question is for the faucet. If you're gonna hand out Bitcoins for people, I'm sure it will be just a couple of dollars. But is there a way you can like make it so that it only stays in ProTip and people like just have to give it out? They can't just,
No, and you know what? We Leo, the original developer, and I debated this ad nauseum. We eventually decided from an ethical point of view that it would not be right, especially, you know, with the ethos in Bitcoin about freedom of money and also we just couldn't do that in good conscience. We couldn't stop people from spending it on anything they wanted to. But I believe in the goodness of people. And I think that if you are just getting, you know, like 50 cents dropped into, because we use the faucets, actually. Janine, who's also on the show, will be commenting in a minute. You know, we researched these faucets rigorously. We used all of them, especially Shani's probably spent too much time. She's in the studio here with me right here, producing this show. She's doing a great job. And I have to say, they're all pretty scammy. They're all really, really scammy. Like if you don't withdraw your Bitcoins by a certain time, they can take them away from you without warning. You know, sometimes they just dry up and there's nothing left. In fact, that's most of them. And they have all kinds of malware and, you know, all these ads that pop up all over the place. So, and apparently Google's really cracking down on them. Like Google isn't liking them, you know, with the Google ad stuff. So I wanted to create an honest, an honest faucet where we campaign as media people to the Bitcoin largesse, and we say, okay, if you donate in Bitcoin, I personally, my reputation, I've done 5 successful, delivered on time, on budget projects, so crowdfunded projects. That not many people in Bitcoin can say that. I've done 5 now. I've been successful in all of them. My reputation, I will personally be responsible for the distribution of these funds to new users. Yes, we will need some kind of filtering for like obviously people uninstalling it, reinstalling it. But I spoke to a developer who works on those captures, and he gave us a really nice piece of code that can help detect when people are doing stuff like that. So I kind of had it half built. The faucet is running. It's on a scale away server right now. I just don't have the visual front end. I'm going to need some help from a web developer just to make it look nice. But once that's done, the question is, do you guys think that's a good idea? So ProTip, it would only be for ProTip users and maybe only for active users. Maybe in order to be eligible for the faucet payout, you have to be using it every week. Does that incentivize you just to pay yourself? I'm not sure. But the point is that it's a learning exercise. Like, we want to see people using it to see if we can get this circular economy where, you know, people are paying and then what's it called? Pay it forward. So you pay it and then other people pay it, and it creates a really good circular economy, a positive circular economy.
Right. One more quick question. So, so the payouts happen once a week, right? When it does the average?
By default, but you can also make manual ones.
Okay, but by default, once a week. And what kind of a mining fee are you putting in? Because if someone does put in, okay, distribute my $3 every week, these things, and so there's like a 20-cent payment going out. What kind of mining fee are you looking at? Are you keeping those low? And if it takes miners a week to clear, so what?
Yeah, I think at the moment we're doing the standard 6-block mining reward. We're using BlockCypher. A big shout out, by the way, to BlockCypher, who've been great at supporting us. Been using them all this time, and they haven't once, pestered us, saying, look, we need to start charging you. So I believe that API works it out at the most economical value. But yes, it batches up all of the payments into one big transaction to save on the fees. And I believe it works it out at a 6-block time to get through. So if you're running Bitcoin QT, you've got that slider, and it will say, like, for 10 kilobytes, you're paying, X number of Satoshis. It uses the 6-block parameter. So it guarantees that it will get through in 6 blocks. Well, not guarantees, but does, that's the fee that's recommended.
Probabilistically, yeah.
Yeah, probabilistically.
All right, cool. I think that's all my questions. I mean, it would be great if you can keep it going. Obviously, that would be my opinion. But yeah, let's see what the community says and how they respond to this video.
Yeah, so, okay. So big shout out to you guys. Obviously, there are big YouTube celebrities, Louis Cole, Jenna Marbles, all those guys. I'm a big fan of those two in particular, actually. They're a little bit too heavy hitting. I think if I contacted them, they just think, oh, I'm just trying to use them and push some political agenda with Bitcoin. But if you do know somebody that has an interesting number of followers on YouTube or SoundCloud or any of these kind of social media outlets, I think personally that ProTip has something unique to offer in that it's peer-to-peer. We don't need to do the KYC AML like Brave are doing. I think it's great what Brave are doing, but that's not a project that I even want to attempt. I don't even want to go through all the lawyers and all of that. So I will leave it to them to do the heavy lifting in that area. Meanwhile, we can work on some of these kind of, smaller content creators. Perhaps they're emerging content creators, they're new and they want to get attention. And how about Bitcoin being that kind of grungy, indie, garage band kind of like, currency that helps people get traction early on, early stage funding for content creators, whether it be cartoonists, YouTubers, musicians, or even just inventors, even just people like, there's a guy who makes tiny houses, he's a construction, he does construction building, and he just makes videos about his building work, right? So he's not strictly speaking a content creator per se, but he is in another business and he's using YouTube as a way of promoting that. Is there an avenue there where, people can get support in Bitcoin for the work they do for spreading messages and spreading support to the people they love? So if you think so, send us, if you know somebody, you've got contacts in the industry, you've got, a friend, or even if you do have 50,000 plus followers on YouTube and you want to just try this out as a social experiment, a social economic experiment, I want to hear from you. Let me know, because as I've said, I'm suffering from chronic pain. It is very difficult for me to get up every day and do things, but I need a project. If I'm going to do it, I need to be motivated. I need to be able to get out of bed, and I need to like hit the day running, and I need to, you know, get my teeth into something. Not least because, you know, I also want to get back to making these lovely things, the Bitcoin full nodes. And so if you guys can, you know, just be my like virtual sports coach and just like get me out of bed and, you know, just really kind of push it and say, yeah, let's go for this. I would be very, very grateful to you. So finally, we have the last topic, which is this academia stuff. I'm just looking for the link right here. Actually, Janine, why don't you take the mic? So I'm going to hand over to my girlfriend Janine, who's the producer on my shows here on YouTube. And one of the things that she's been working on is open source journalism, which is basically a new way of being able to, let me just get the link up here for you guys to see it. A new way to do investigative, in particular investigative journalism. So her first big project was investigating Jacob Appelbaum leaving the Tor project back in June. Do you want to start saying something right now and just talk to everybody about that?
Yeah, so the first project I actually did, what I've done is I've coined the term revision controlled journalism because I was interested in doing open source journalism, but the term open source journalism wasn't very specific. It was very open-ended. For the most part, the people that use that term are the ones that are doing open source intelligence, like where basically for most media, all they do is they write the article, and they usually don't include very many links or sources where they're getting their information from. And so open source intelligence is where they do include those sources to show where they got their information from, so that the reader, if they want to, they can verify any of the claims that that they're making in the article. But what I wanted to do is to be a bit more specific about the kind of open source journalism I was doing. And what I've been doing is I've been using revision control systems. In this case, I've just been using GitHub because it's very easy to use and it's hosted. I would prefer that it's decentralized, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm planning to use IPFS at some point. And the reason that I wanted to use revision control systems is because there's been a lot of times where there's articles that I read it the first time when it first comes up, and for instance, they make a false claim and then they remove it. And they don't for most articles, what they've gotten into a habit of doing is that they'll put a section at the bottom of the article for any updates that they make, and they'll say that this has been changed. But a lot of them I've seen, they don't always do that. And so I've always wanted to know, like, how has this article changed over time? And what revision control allows me to do is I can write my story, I can make it as many changes as I want, but it's still transparent, because if people are worried, like, did I remove something important from the article that maybe I didn't think was important but was important to them, they can go back in time and still find that information, and they can also see how the story has grown over time. In my case, with the Jacob app, my first story was actually on the Apple versus FBI case. It's kind of weird that both my stories involve apples in a way. But that was my first story, and it wasn't as successful because I was mostly doing it just to aggregate articles on the story, because I'm not a lawyer or anything. I wouldn't have been showing up at the courthouses, and so all of the information was mostly coming through lawyers that were going to the courthouse and attending the hearings and everything, or the tech articles that were addressing questions of, whether this or that method would work to break the encryption on the Apple iPhone. But the thing I didn't like about it is that there wasn't a lot of audience participation. I knew that I had people reading it, but they weren't really, like, I would get people that would send me articles privately, but it wasn't as interactive. Whereas with this one, I can tell even from the number of people that have started on GitHub that I have way more readers. And I was also watching the analytics for the page. I would watch how many people were viewing it per day. And on my high days, I was getting over like 300 views per day. So I think it was about 100 to 200 unique views. On average days, I was getting about 100 to 150 views. And then recently it's dropped down because it's now, what, 5-6 months after the fact when it first started. And so the information is kind of, you know, it's out there by this point. It's not as exciting anymore. There's not a lot of journals covering it because the hype is gone. There's still, like in recent weeks, there's still been some interesting stuff happening because there's been, like, people are very upset at the Tor project about how they've handled the investigation because what I found very strange about it is that normally when you have, they specifically said at the beginning that this was an employment issue. It was a person, I think Sherry Steele used the term personnel issue. And so when you're dealing with an employment issue, it's usually not very good practice to force the accused to resign before you actually investigate the claims against them. So I don't know why they did that, but from that point on, it only got worse because it seems to be pretty clear that when they actually did the investigation after forcing him to resign, that they didn't even interview him because apparently Applebaum wanted to use Signal for the interview with the investigator that they hired. And the investigator, for some reason, didn't want to. I don't know, because Tor claims that they did offer encryption for the investigation. But then for some reason, there was a problem with them being able to use Signal. I don't know what the problem was. But yeah, anyway, it's kind of dried up by this point, but the only way I can summarize it is it's still a tragic situation. It's still ongoing, even though it's not, there's not as much energy in the story anymore. And so I've also had a request because the way GitHub is organized, the page, it's not very aesthetically friendly because obviously it's meant for coding software management. It's not really meant for stories. So I've made the offer that I would make an ebook format for the investigation. The only thing is, if I'm going to do that, the difference between this investigation and making an ebook is that this investigation I've been doing has, for the most part, been for me because I had an intrinsic interest in investigating this and figuring out what was going on. And I don't have a problem myself with the way it's organized. I can find the information very easily. But if I'm going to create something external, something extra so that people can read it, I would prefer that I would get some kind of donation or compensation for that work because, you know, I don't make a lot of money. I do small projects here and there, but yeah, I would prefer that I would get compensated for that. So if you would be interested in that, just let me know.
Okay, so I just want to stress how much work Charlene has put into this, and she's often up. She was up until like 7 in the morning, and every night she just pours her heart into this. Look at how much fact checking. Look at all like the links. She puts everything on like Wayback Machine in case people like take stuff down on forums and on Twitter and stuff like this. You see Wayback Machine up here. So she's, I mean, look at the work that has got, look at how big this article is and what this really is for me. I think other journalists, actually at least one journalist, if not more, has already approached Charlene and said, look, can we use you as a trade resource, right? Because if my publication turns to me as a journalist and says, look, we need to run a piece on this Applebaum story, I can't go away and do all this research you've done. Can I just borrow your research and just credit you? And Charlene's like, yeah, great. You know, it's CC0, a Creative Commons 0, which means that she's not asking for, you know, she's not going to stop you from using it. But at the same time, you know, we're like, yeah, attribution. It's just attribution only. And that's all she really wants. But actually, you know, people need to live. And part of, you know, ProTip is about encouraging people to reward one another for their work. So the question is, like, obviously we're going to be doing more work on this from a technical basis and making it more decentralized, putting it up on IPFS, that kind of thing. But really, I think what Charlene would like to know from you guys is, what would you like to see her investigate next? She's done Apple versus FBI. She's done Jacob leaving the Tor project. What investigation would you like to see Charlene do following this one? And do you think, you know, how should they be compensated? How should journalists be compensated? We don't have very much time left. I wanted to go over some of the comments in this video. So let me just share the screen now. Where are we? I'll just share my whole screen. How about that? So yeah, we got some comments down here below the video. People saying, hi, welcome back, Chris. And that's all great. Thank you. Good to see you all. And Artist Castle, Chris, yes, brilliant. Thank you. GBP is a scam, says Michael Mayer. Absolutely agree with you. That's why I don't hold any. And no, there hasn't been a Bitcoin talk group yet this week. We tried to do one on Friday. I was going to be on there, and then Tom was traveling. He couldn't quite make it. Helen says,
yeah, we're trying to, I'll comment on that one real quick. We've been like talking back and forth with Thomas, trying to get the Bitcoin group up. We're talking maybe later today if we can get like another person or two. We're trying. It's hard to organize across multiple timelines, and people are busy. On Friday, I decided to go out on a Friday night. God forbid, Bitcoin isn't taking over my entire life. But we're trying to get one out soon.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, that really just brings me to the last topic, which is I've got to go on a private call now to a group of academics, people that work at universities at PhD level, and sometimes I think some of them are teachers, to talk about open source blockchain certification. And this is a project by MIT at the moment, who are working on something. Let me see there. There's a nice diagram there. So a school can issue a certificate in something like this, in JSON, that can be rendered into something very pretty looking. The student has a public key. It gets added to the certificate. It gets signed, put into the blockchain, and then they can send those certificates to their employers in such a way that doesn't require a centralized authority to really be the, you know, storage of that key, because all that school has to do is publish their public key broadly and widely on its website and other mediums, and then, you know, employers can trust that certificate is genuine. And so I'm going to be talking to a few people about that. That's the GitHub. I will link this below after the show ends, and perhaps after the private chat that I've had. And yeah, so these are some other links as well. So that's what I'm going to be doing next after the show finishes. So yeah, guys, look, thanks very much for being here. Like I say, sorry I've been so absent. I'm going to try and get back into things, and just onwards and upwards. I want your ideas. I think somebody said, let me just check in the chat room. MZ, oh, hi, man. How you doing? You want to help? Yes, you can. What you want to help with ProTip, it would be fantastic. The full nodes, I think, just sort of take care of themselves now. It's just a case of putting the new version of Bitcoin Core coming out, 0.13.1, which is going to have segregated witness coming. So I'm going to have a go at putting on that. I skipped 0.13 just because I was waiting for SegWit. And yeah, so I think Patreon hacked. Absolutely, it was hacked. And Brave Browser, like I say, does all the KYC AML, and it pays the publisher, and so you've still got those middlemen. I think there is still room for a purely peer-to-peer option, and I think if there is, you know, some guerrilla marketing and some, you know, people out there on the street. There's a guy called Nightscape on YouTube. Go check him out. This guy is crazy. He's like this young kid. He scales buildings. He got onto the top of the Olympic Stadium here in London recently, got himself, you know, a few 100,000 followers. You know, he got featured on the news because he filmed himself with a GoPro going on top of this Olympic Stadium, and he just makes some awesome stuff. But the only way he can make money is by selling t-shirts. Like, and we've got to get past this, like, selling t-shirts to make money. Like, this guy puts out a lot of work. Some of it is like, you know, lawful or not, I don't know, but in the UK, trespass is not illegal when it's on commercial property. So he is technically not breaking any laws, but he produces some amazing YouTube videos that actually make you kind of like grip your seat, because you think, you know, God, the guy could just like fall off at any moment. But he's very confident. And anyway, young people like that, new emerging artists who can't get, you know, the credit card payments and all of this stuff, and they don't want to dox themselves using PayPal. If you can think of any examples, do let us know. You can reach me at Mr. Chris Ellis on Twitter, at World CryptoNet if you want to tweet out the channel. And of course, you can troll me in the comments. If you disagree or agree with any of the things I've said, don't forget to like, subscribe, and donate if you like this content. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me on the channel, Chris. Yeah, if ProTip can go off the Patreon, that would be great. I love the idea of crowdfunded journalism. I have the same problem with Steemit, where I spent like days and days of time exposing that scam, and I still haven't had time to write an article. And now people are texting me left and right. Well, can you do it on this? Can you do it on that? I'm like, no, that was like a personal vendetta that I spent like probably 50 hours of work went into it, and I don't know if I'm motivated to do it for free on every possible altcoin. But I know you got to run. Maybe we can do another show on this. I really love the topic.
Oh, I was just about to try and bring up your critique. If you haven't seen it, Tone has done the best critique of Steemit ever, and I don't even consider them a competitor. I won't go into it now, because if I do, I'll be here all night. But let's do another show.
I'm writing the article. I already have it all in one PDF. I've just been like so lazy and unmotivated to like for that final 10% step. I'm going to do it this week, and then I'll get that out.
Okay, so there it is. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to Charlene for producing this show, and thank you to Tone for joining us. Thank you to you, more importantly, for being here. Otherwise, why would we bother doing it in the first place? Thank you for hanging around, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.